In 2021, I had a period where I lost muscle and gained fat. I looked like my beginner photos again. The craziest thing is that I was actually still very consistent with my training and my nutrition through this time. For anyone wondering, therefore, how on earth that is possible, today we are not only going to be going over those boring bits like why sleep is important and the very interesting things that it actually does contribute to that you probably didn't know before, but we're going to be delving into the cool science around improving your sleep so that you don't feel drained and weak 24/7 after those long work hours, so that you can be more present in your family life, so that you can be performing on your A game, actually have even better focus and energy for the work that you're doing. Now, sleep is a real interesting one because there is a huge overlap with stress management and kind of energy as well. Even though stress and sleep are separate factors, energy and sleep are a little bit more intertwined. But I think what's worth noting right off the bat is firstly that sleep is going to basically just have a massive impact on everything. Sleep is going to have a massive impact on your hormones. Your testosterone levels are going to decrease if your sleep is low. And that, of course, is already going to have an impact on your muscle mass and fat loss. But as well as that, it's also going to give you a lot more uphill battle in those other areas. So, of course, if you're not recovering as well as you could be, your training is going to suffer, bringing about progressive overload is going to be greatly reduced. You're going to actually crave the wrong foods. You're going to have impaired decision-making ability, so you're more likely to have those bad foods. So if you do find that you just can't stay consistent with nutrition, sleep can actually also be an underlying factor and root cause there. It's also going to make you physically more hungry, so you're actually going to need more food to stay satisfied. So it's actually just going to make your entire fitness journey more uphill. Now, it can be worth bringing this up, even though that's a really boring bit, because a lot of people, especially the guys that I work with, they do work the long hours. They've always got things going on in their mind. Stress is part and parcel with the ambitions that they've got in life. However, therefore, it is very, very common for them to disregard sleep. It's something that's seen as optional, can work a few more hours and get more sleep, but you are actually damaging your prospects and reducing your productivity and efficiency by shelving your sleep in order to get those things done. In the long term, it will catch up with you, as well as, of course, with your health. Now, it's not only the visual side of things that your sleep is actually going to derail when it comes to health, but remember, your sleep is effectively where your body really just recovers from all the stresses that are pounding away at it. So that's going to involve higher overall oxidative stress and cellular damage. The implications on things like cancer and other health conditions are massive as well. So for looking out for your overall health and well-being, taking control of your sleep is something that's vital, absolutely vital, if you want to be performing on your A game and, of course, looking more jacked and shredded. Who doesn't want that? So this is something that we are huge on in our program at Pinnacle Coaching. We try to really create a very holistic approach. That's number one, how we get our clients in such incredible shape. We don't play before and after with our transformation photos, but more importantly, we are huge proponents of doing things the right way. A lot of people don't realize that when you starve yourself, when you do these fad diets, when your coach runs you through your 6-week shred challenge, your cortisol goes sky high. And as a result, your sleep is going to be impaired. It's very common when you are low on food for your sleep to actually get worse. So there is really no point in doing these silly short-term quick fix challenges because you don't actually learn anything through the process, and that's how you always end up regaining and losing those same 10 kgs year after year. So you want a more holistic approach, something that's actually going to get you a result the right way, that's going to teach you the habits to build into your lifestyle through the process, like I'm about to run through now on this episode, so you can manage your health and fitness for life. This isn't us wanting you to come back to us for another 6-week shred. My guys want an incredible result. They want to do it the right way so that they're actually being fueled, not lacking on sleep, not dragging themselves through work by the back end of the process, and actually being educated through that so that they've got all the tools to always stay on track no matter what life throws at them. That is what the Pinnacle program is all about. And we use that by making things very, very simple, but behind the scenes is a lot of cool science that I've done all the figuring out so that you don't have to. You basically get to just focus on doing, because I get to figure out how to integrate it into your lifestyle. So If you want to upgrade your sleep, your energy, so that you can actually be more productive, be more efficient, be more present, have more energy, all the great things that come along with that, here is where we start. Number one is sleep pressure. You actually need a reason to sleep. This is why even when you are stressed out, even when your sleep hygiene is on point, as we're going to cover in a few moments, that is why these stressed out CEOs still somehow kind of hit the hay and they are knocked out. That is all to do with sleep pressure. And effectively what that is basically the more things you do, the more active you are, the more stressed out you are, the more adenosine is going to build up in your system. Now that adenosine buildup is going to drive a greater demand for sleep in order to clear that. This is number one. Now linking into this idea of sleep hygiene, all that sleep hygiene is basically your routine around sleep to maximize its quality. And this is why things like naps can be really hit or miss, because it can be very common to, catch up on sleep. But the thing is, if you imagine this buildup of adenosine, you have a little nap that kind of then brings that adenosine down, helps to clear it. It gets to where you should be going to sleep, where that adenosine buildup should be making you tired, and now it's actually already lower than it should be. So that is one of the reasons how you end up actually screwing up that cycle by taking naps. So you need a good, consistent sleep schedule, not taking naps to catch up on sleep. But that idea of sleep pressure means that you need to be active. You can't hope to have good quality sleep if you are being super, super inactive. So if you are struggling to get consistently active, get into the gym, do your cardio, if you are basically letting your lifestyle control you, if you haven't yet jumped on my program and you're listening to this, if you are like the guys on my program who are working the long hours, they struggle to make it to the gym consistently, etc., that is actually going to be a really important step of driving better sleep quality so that you can build up your sleep pressure. Your body actually needs something to recover from in order to maximize the sleep quality. So that is number one. That's going to be one of the biggest underpinning principles to your sleep. Now we move on to sleep hygiene. As I said, this is more about your routine surrounding sleep. So this is all the little hacks and habits. Now, most of these stem from us wanting to regulate what's called our circadian rhythm. This is basically our physiological clock. Your body functions on a timer. It should be making you tired at similar times. It should be making you hungry at similar times. It should be making you feel more awake at similar times day to day. It should be doing all that because it likes to function on a timer. Now, when our sleep hygiene isn't on point, this timer basically gets a bit deregulated, and as a result, the timings are all over the place and you can't possibly hope to feel at your best or get good sleep quality. So part of that is, first and foremost, sleep routine. You want this to be as consistent as possible. Now, this is where a lot of people won't tell you this, but your lifestyle does actually kind of determine the level of progress that you can make. If you work night shifts multiple times a week, if your sleep cycles are always here, there, and everywhere, you're going to have a really hard time regulating your circadian rhythm. Now, there is a little bit that you can do, especially if your shifts are a little bit more kind of once in a while. When it comes to supplementation, using things like melatonin or 5-HTP, which would be a precursor, can be useful to help sync those cycles. But ultimately, this is why they did do a study on this. This is one that I can't actually quote off the top of my head. I did come prepared with some studies. I was actually going to mention when it comes to body composition. Fun fact: they did do a study. It was Nedelchova et al. 2010, I believe. And they did do a really cool experiment. The reason why I always know this one is because the controlled environment was really, really ahead of its time. They basically kind of locked everyone into this facility. They gave them the same diet, equated for the individual. And literally all that they changed, same facilities that they were staying in, everything. So expenditure was matched, diet was matched accordingly, perfectly controlled environment. The only difference was that group 1 got 8 hours of sleep, group 2 got 5.5 hours of sleep. They actually lost the same amount of weight because the deficit was doing its thing with that diet, but the group that had a good amount of sleep lost half lean mass, half body fat. The group that got sleep deprived on purpose they lost, I think it was something like 25% of that weight that they lost was body fat, and the rest of it was lean mass. Now, of course, these groups weren't doing resistance training, so obviously if you're wondering, well, the normal group lost lean mass, it's like, yeah, but this was a sedentary group. This was literally just the effects of sleep, nothing else in play. But it shows how profound of an effect that can have on your body. So yeah, maybe you can offset that a little bit by engaging in resistance training, but yeah, it kind of shows just directly how sleep can negatively impact your body composition. But anyway, back onto the sleep routine side of things. So studies, I can't even quite remember exactly what I was on about. I was talking about melatonin. Oh yes, so night shifts. They did actually do some studies. This one's the one that I can't remember to cite. And basically, they did kind of conclude that those who work night shifts are actually at risk for some of those other conditions, diseases, cancer, etc. Because it does somewhat deprive you in the long term. So when we're making those lifestyle choices, my sincerest respect to anyone who does work in kind of the medical field, the nurses, doctors, people who do have night shifts and things like that, because they are literally putting their health on the line in order to help people because they believe it's their calling. So the most tremendous amount of respect for people with that vocation. Yeah, shows that idea that when your sleep cycle is a little bit out of sync, it's a lot harder to regulate your circadian rhythm. A lot of people in these positions struggle with getting to sleep at similar times because their body basically doesn't know when to make them feel more awake, when to make them feel more tired. This is classic deregulating of the circadian rhythm. So, although not always possible, again, if you do have those shifts, the ideal scenario is that as close as possible, you want a good, consistent sleep time and wake time. Now, for those who are doing shifts, what I recommend is what I call this overlap. So if you imagine that there's these kind of core hours that you are nearly always asleep, at least, even when your sleep and wake times shift, you at least want to keep consistent what you can. So if there are these core hours that you're pretty much always asleep, then you can basically ever so slightly try to move those sleep and wake times so that you can maximize that kind of core central window that you're always asleep, if that makes sense. But for those who aren't doing night shifts and anything like that, this does mean that you would find it worthwhile to have some boundaries in play, to be making it to bed at similar times most nights and waking up at similar times, because this is why after a while of doing this, you'll probably no longer need an alarm, because your body will get so used to waking up at similar times that it'll basically do all of that for you. That is actually, well, number one, what I do. I always wake up at the same time, no alarm. Because my not my central nervous system, my circadian rhythm is very well regulated. I fall asleep at the same times very easy. I get tired at the same times very easy. I feel awake at the same times. And it all comes totally natural at this point because I'm just quite disciplined with it. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect to the minute, but I think an hour window is certainly realistic for most people. So going to bed sometime between, say, 10 and 11, waking up sometime between 6 and 7, an average of maybe 10:30 and 6:30 if you're shooting for 8 hours in bed or so. Now, it's worth appreciating that hours in bed is not the same as hours asleep. So now that you've got that kind of, duration by also fixing those sleep and wake times, this is also, if your duration is currently crap, this is also part one to sorting that, because it means that you're actually consistently going to be in bed for a decent amount of time. But once again, not going to be perfect. Once in a while, if you have a later night, etc., it's not going to be the end of the world. But if you are like frequently Friday night out, Saturday night out, Sunday still a little bit later because and then waking up at the usual on Monday morning. If you are always switching up these times, it effectively creates a jet lag effect for your body. This is why you get jet lag when you go to other countries. It's just your circadian rhythm is off, and it just takes a bit of time to adapt. So those consistent sleep and wake times is already going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It's already going to do lots to sort out your sleep quality, because your body's going to basically be producing melatonin when it should, making you feel more awake when it should. And it's also, of course, just going to build that consistency in your routine so that your duration is higher now as well. So you're getting more sleep, you're getting more good quality sleep. That is already like the biggest low-hanging fruit out there. And again, much, much harder if you do shift work. Just aim for those core hours. So The next thing that you can do once that is taken care of is now kind of delving a little bit deeper into this idea of circadian rhythm. Daylight exposure. Now, this is where these things start to stack up quite nicely because we know that we need that sleep pressure. We know that we need to be active. We know now that we want a good amount of daylight exposure. Our body is very sensitive to lights, and this is basically why, like, yeah, as it gets dark, it should want us to get tired. The opposite rings true. When light is more intense in the earlier parts of the day, this is when our body should be experiencing that light to take it in and give us the signal, right, now we should feel more awake. We should feel a little bit more energetic. We should want to get things done. So a good way to go about this is get outside in the morning, tick off some steps. Now we've, number one, obviously creating a bit of a calorie expenditure, but as well as that, we are fueling our circadian rhythm and we are building a little bit of sleep pressure as well. So win, win, win. If you can get outside in the morning, that is a great habit to be in. And bonus points if you can do this, a bit more frequently throughout the day. A lot of people complain about that, afternoon slump at work. You have lunch and then a couple hours later, that happens. Part of that is due to, number one, if depending on your lunch, part of that's due to your blood glucose. So having a little walk can help with that as well. But again, getting those signals outside so that your body actually wants to be giving you energy until it's the right time for it to start making you tired. So once again, this just factors into our circadian rhythm. Our body takes in this stimulus and it basically signals us to respond in a certain way. And obviously, as you can expect, that is actually just going to give you more energy throughout the day as well. So now separate to sleep, that's a good way to, even if you are on a little bit less sleep, and sleep is going to drive energy if you are well recovered, but just in terms of just direct energy output, getting good light exposure through the day is going to be key. For this reason, this is also why you sometimes see people with those cool orange glasses, those blue light blocking glasses, because that is basically to, once again, remove that signal of harsh light that wants your body to be awake. That is one of the reasons that people often sometimes struggle to fall asleep, because blue light actually prevents our body from producing melatonin. Again, there were studies done on this, and a group that did use blue light blocking versus not, melatonin production significantly higher, which is of course going to bring about your wanting to sleep. So blue light versus daylight, get it in preferably earlier in the day, limit blue light later into the day. Now, this starts to tie in a little bit more to stress, because another cool little habit that I tell my clients if they do struggle to switch off at night is get off your damn phone. Get away from stimulating news, bad news, anything that can stress you out prior to sleep. We want to be promoting what we call a parasympathetic state. Now, your autonomic nervous system basically puts you into a sympathetic state, fight or flight mode, or parasympathetic state, rest and digest mode. If you are parasympathetic, fight or flight, fast heart rate, fast breathing rate, you are going to struggle massively to get to sleep. So this starts to tie in this entire idea of stress and how that plays into sleep. Now, this is where things get a little bit awkward, because it almost sounds a little bit annoying when someone's like, well, how do you get better sleep? You manage your stress. How do you manage your stress? You get better sleep. That doesn't really help at all. But there are some things that we can do outside of sleep to better manage our stress. When it comes to something like that, it really depends kind of where the stress is coming from. If it's more acute stress at the back end of the day that has us in a sympathetic state, then the answer can be actually fairly straightforward. Things like breathing work in those scenarios are super critical, because that once again helps to regulate our autonomic nervous system. So instead of being in a sympathetic state, if we can identify that we are in a sympathetic state, we understand that our heart rate's a little bit fast, our breathing rate's quite fast. That usually happens when we're quite stressed out. If we actually start to regulate our breathing, there are many different ways that you can go about this, but that will actually start to put you in a more parasympathetic state, a better position to be able to get to sleep from. So I do often urge my clients back end of the day to do some breathing work, as well as shelf the phone, shelf things that can give them a bit of a cortisol spike, and just basically kind of take some time out and put themselves in the best position possible to get a good night's sleep. Now, this doesn't help if the rest of your day is filled with stress as well. If your stress is just chronically high, then there is a lot that you can do to kind of manage that stress. Number one is actually just audit your environment. What can you get rid of that's stressing you out? Now, a lot of the time, this is a bit more theoretical than applicable, because I can't be that guy to tell my clients to get rid of their jobs. But there are a few things that they can do to actually kind of build their resilience to stress. Part of it is, once again, improving your sleep will mean that your ability to tolerate stress is much, much better. So implementing some of those other habits to manage your sleep is going to be totally key to doing that. But I can't be that guy to tell my clients to quit their jobs, and it's more so about being able to manage it. But when it comes to relationships, when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to your friendships, social circles, things like that, if there are things that are causing you a large amount of stress, then it does need to be looked at if these things are genuinely serving you. And you do need to create a life that is not giving you unnecessary, unmanageable amounts of stress. That is kind of the key distinction there. If it's unnecessary and it's unmanageable, then it makes sense that that has to go. And sometimes that's harsh truths for people, but that is honestly how, number one, you create a life that is much more aligned to you, and number two, as a result of that, become happy, and as a result of being able to get way better sleep and stress management, you are going to be even happier and able to actually tolerate that stress. So, breathing work, a big component of that. Auditing your life, big part of that. There is a bit of supplementation that you can use in way of adaptogens, things like ashwagandha, that can also help with stress management. But all in all, those are going to be kind of your biggest two players, along with kind of actually managing your sleep as well. For that reason, again, same, when you wake up earlier in the day, what you don't want is to be having these constant cortisol spikes. So if you can delay you getting onto your phone, getting the bad news as soon as you wake up, that can be quite a useful one as well. And that means that the morning can be used to habit stack quite effectively when it comes to a good morning routine. You can always sort of, do some breathing work whilst outside getting sunlight exposure, and you're really setting yourself up to be very resilient for the day. This does sound like hippie shit, but there is actually some good research on this stuff. And it's again about creating a more holistic approach to your health, being able to balance life on top of it, and that comes by making you more resilient to the stresses that you are going to experience. That ties in nicely, therefore, to other coping mechanisms for stress, which involves drugs like cannabis, alcohol, often things that people use to get them feeling drowsy. These are sedatives. They do not improve your sleep quality. Even if they make you feel drowsy and sleepy, they actually prevent you from accessing deeper levels of sleep. So deep sleep and REM sleep, other stages of sleep beyond just light sleep, that you need sufficient amounts of to make sure that you are feeling recovered and ready to roll. These are going to be impaired by use of those drugs. Same applies to things like caffeine. Caffeine has a long half-life. We're talking 5 to 6 hours. So if you have 100 milligrams of caffeine at 4 p.m., at 10 p.m. you're still going to have 50 circulating your system. So having an appropriate cutoff time for caffeine, as well as an appropriate amount of it throughout the day, is going to be key. Again, can be a really hard cycle to break, and a lot of people just don't know better. We're so used to just fueling our way through bad sleep with caffeine, and therefore not getting good sleep, that you think you're getting used to caffeine when you have that coffee after dinner. No, it doesn't affect my sleep. It's just that you're now so used to terrible sleep, waking up feeling awful, but then just having enough caffeine to carry you through, that you don't know any better. But that's how it's an awful cycle to kind of break out of. And in some cases, very, very hard to do so, because your work and your life and your daily routine kind of revolve around you needing enough caffeine to actually just fuel you through. So I think those are going to be the basics of sleep hygiene. I can see that we're already going on for quite a while here, so if you're still around, congratulations. I guess I'll put a cheeky plug here and say that if you are enjoying this stuff, you want to see how I work some of that into your lifestyle to just upgrade everything that you do, of course, just click the link below. I'll take you through to my website, and you can see if you like the look of our program. Then going into nutrition, there's a few nutrition bits that you can do to improve sleep as well. And that is going to revolve around a few things. Number one is maintaining stable blood sugar levels throughout the night. If your blood sugars are going up and down really, really rapidly, that can sometimes cause you to wake or have poorer sleep. So a bit of fruit with your last meal for a bit of fructose, which is going to feed liver glycogen, is going to be quite a useful one for you there. Making sure that you're having enough micronutrients, so make sure you're getting your fruit and veg in, don't just track your calories, is going to be a key one for sleep as well. Some micronutrients, namely vitamin B5 and B6, are quite useful for, sorry, just got a text, are quite useful for fueling sleep pathways. And yeah, it's going to be some of the main ones there. As well as that, don't have your final meal too close to bedtime, because if you are trying to digest that food, then you are not going to be in the best possible position to sleep. So I think we're going to leave that as this little bit of a crash course on improving your sleep to fuel better energy. Those are the main kind of points that I came prepared with, just some low-hanging fruits, because I think overwhelm is also a massive thing. So to begin with, if you can already get yourself into a good sleep routine, get a bit of daylight exposure, make sure that you are being active, coupling that with a couple of little nutritional hacks, you should already find a good improvement in that. If you enjoyed, of course, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a rating wherever you're listening to this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.